I want to start by saying thank you for all coming down. Graverunners and I Love Ugly, and started as a community project in 2020. I guess the original idea was to just find some betterment for ourselves mentally through the channels of running. It's really blown up. Over the years, so many brands have reached out to us to say, hey, do you want to do something? And we were always just looking for alignment. And when I Love Ugly started doing active, we saw some of those same values, the grit. It's all those things that you do in the dark to make yourself better every day. So super stoked to have brought this together and for the team to have helped bring this to life.
First time I met Josh, he kind of came in with the prospect of working together with Graverunners. At the time when we first did I Love Ugly Active, I was always looking towards what these guys were doing, both from the the mindset and also what they're doing culturally. I also knew Connor as well, and then me and Josh, we just kicked it off straight away. I think just a lot of just our mindset and philosophy and the personal values which we individually held, there's a lot of alignment there. So we felt it was just the next step was to kind of work together with something. Actually, originally I don't think it was product day. It was just something.
No, it was just how do we use each other's communities to make something happen.
Yeah, and then he slipped his resume into my inbox, and then about a week later I was like, hey bro, do you want a job? And it's been awesome. So here we are. And then and then Stefan obviously in the mix. You can kind of give yourself a bit of a rundown. Who you are, what you do. Yeah, you're part of the story and the journey as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not here just because he's my brother, just so you know. Nah, but yeah, just kind of a coincidence. Something that started for me was this long endurance journey. Started when I actually started traveling. I had this mindset switch. So a lot of what Josh just mentioned, that idea of doing a lot of the hard work in the dark, that was something that I really grew to love and saw that as essential for me to grow as a man. I had this kind of light bulb moment, and ever since then it's kind of been a constant pursuit. So I set on that pathway pretty all in. I kind of went balls to the wall and wanted to pursue something in that realm and figured out kind of what that looked like. And then all of a sudden I had my family, we had a real tragedy back in 2023 with one of our brothers who took his own life, and I saw that as an opportunity to raise awareness and do something extremely hard, but to showcase the internal struggles and the hardships we all face internally. And I see training, and I think a lot of you here can see training as a real tool and a conduit to break into that sort of mindset that we struggle with on a day-to-day. But when you willingly put yourself through that adversity every day through the medium of, say, running or strength training or doing things that are arduous and difficult, you can really start to reshape your framework and your mindset around suffering and hardship. So I saw that as essential. And now here I am rocking and being supported by Active as I'm on this path. And yeah, it's only just beginning. So it's great to be here.
Fantastic intro. So purpose, firstly, thanks each and one of you for coming out here tonight. I know it's difficult on a Wednesday night, so really appreciate it. Josh, for also blending your crew and your family with the ILU one as well. I felt it was seamless, but appreciate it. So really appreciate that, guys. So the point of tonight as well is obviously to come here together and celebrate the collection, but we just thought it would be nice to just have a bit of a fluid conversation. Me talking to Stefan, I'll just have to put my professional hat on because sometimes I view him through the lens of a brother. But he's done some remarkable stuff just through I guess overcoming a lot of mental barriers. And as he said, we lost our brother Jerome to suicide, which this mental health tea is it's basically to help support him and also in remembrance of him. So I've done some crazy shit as well. Obviously business. I see business as a bit of a metaphor for life. And there's a lot of similarities with business, growing a brand, and also endurance athletes and people that do stuff physically. So I just thought it would be great to, I guess, have a bit of a fluid conversation. Can ask Stefan some questions. Also, feel free. We can open up the floor as well. Anyone here that wants to ask some questions, feel free as well. And we'll just, keep it fluid, have a bit of a conversation. Hopefully you guys come out of here with a few golden nuggets. Hopefully, there might be people here that are on the journey running, people that are well-seasoned runners. Hopefully we can kind of move a needle in your mind. And both what these guys said about that what you practice in private, you get rewarded for in public. I can contest to that as well, and it's all about the small incremental habits and little wins that you do every day that I believe over time compound, whether it be in the context of business or building a brand or, or your job or building a podcast or being a runner. I think that holds true in everything. And that's something that I try to practice every single day. And every time I kind of stray away from it, I realize that even though at the time when I was doing these small habits, I realized how powerful they are and how the power of compounding and momentum is just an amazing energy of life. But anyway, that's kind of getting a bit philosophical. But Stefan, I thought I'd just kind of kick it off. Like, obviously you ran from the top of New Zealand to the bottom and then back again. Pretty crazy. And I did a 15K run the other day, and I was like thinking the whole time, how did this dude do 70K every day? So how did you do that? And tell us like what, the mental battles, inevitable mental battles that you had to contest with. How did you overcome them?
Yeah. I think the key was definitely finding out, well, before I found out why in some way, it was the willingness to want to do it. And obviously, due to our brother, I recognize this huge problem we're facing in this country. And I think a big part of the problem we're facing, not only in this country, in the world, is this pandering to us in a way where it's all about feeling good and it's all about things being okay, when it's like, in reality now, we're not always going to feel good and it's okay to not be okay. That kind of quote that's thrown around. And I saw that as a thing that, okay, how can I sort of convey that without words, through action? And it was through that, and me having that willingness, I saw that as being the starting point, really. Once I had that willingness to want to do it, all the rest of the stuff came. So once I had that willingness, it created the why, which was obviously to raise awareness. It was in honor of our brother. Encountering a huge tragedy, I saw that as a huge lever to pull. So it sort of kind of worked in that sort of unison of reasons. And then obviously once I began the journey and got injured on day 2, I'm like, how am I going to do this, And that was where the conversation started to happen every day. It's one thing to have the why and have the idea, but it's another thing that once you're in it, it's a whole nother story. And that's what I had to experience every single day. The alarm went off at 5 a.m. I've got to run 65 or 70, sometimes 70, nearly 80K days. I'm like waking up like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? Had to have that conversation every single day. So answering your question in some way, it was starting each new day, getting through each day, and then each day having that same reason as to why I'm doing this, which was for Jerome. And this is something where I see it as an opportunity to showcase that I'm a pretty average runner. Like, I mean, look at the size of me. I don't think I'm necessarily built for running. So that right there I had against me. So I saw that as an opportunity to show that, average runner doing this audacious thing. I'm like, hey, let's just go all in. Let's see what happens. I kind of got nothing to lose here. I've already lost my brother. What more could be worse than that? So that was sort of the conversation. And it looked different every day. Some days it would be real feral, foul talk, self-talk, Like, I don't really want to repeat the words because, you get the image, right? It just, like, I'd honestly sometimes be like, damn, how am I thinking of this? But it seemed to be the only thing that would prop up, the only thing I could really navigate. And then other days it would be in a flow state. I'd be looking at running through mountains and running through these valleys and scaling mountains with snow on it, and I didn't even have proper clip-ons, and having a self-arrest and, going over all these sorts of river streams. So it was just the whole multitude of environmental factors you could imagine. And then it's just like that everyday self-talk of like, well, I'm here, I chose to be here. Jerome, he didn't choose to be going through what he went through. I'm here and I've chosen to put myself through this. So that sort of became the framework and sort of the self-talk each day. Yeah.
So you found your reason, you found your why. How does someone find their why if they haven't had something like tragic happen in their life to actually get up and embark on their journey? How would you advise someone to find their why and their reason to get them out of the bed to put their shoes on, how do you advise someone do that?
It really comes down, it's a great question, because I think that's the $1 million question, that how do you get someone to change that doesn't want to change? That's really what I think you're asking, eh? And I felt with Jerome in some way, that was the hardest thing, you know, to be personal with you all. Us as a family, we were very much aware of Jerome and the struggles he was going through, and we were aware in some sense of the steps and the tools that were needed in order for one to improve upon himself. But Jerome, he sort of lost that meaning and lost that value in himself. And I think that's kind of in some way where the answer is to that. It's how do you draw someone into finding that meaning, finding that hope? And I always refer back to Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychologist that got trapped essentially in Auschwitz during Germans' occupation. And in that process, you realize that the people who lost hope and the people who looked forward to Christmas and Christmas never came and they were never liberated, they were the ones that went to the electric fence and killed themselves. He found that the people that were able to find a glimmer of hope, even if it meant that they could get through the day, that was enough. So in a roundabout way, I think if you can even find it, that getting just through the day, getting through that shift, getting through that workout, getting through that potential job opportunity that's next year, but it's something to aim for. Having an aim, even if it may seem mundane, or you're a dishwasher in a restaurant, and then your aim is to be front of house by 6 months' time. Finding that thing that may be so seemingly insignificant and deriving a sense of meaning from that. And sometimes that may feel real blind and hopeless, but I think if you can at least grab for something that may be so far out of reach, that's better than not having anything at all to draw onto. And that obviously looks different for every single person, because every single person has their own ambitions, different goals, different senses of purpose. But finding a sense of meaning from something that may seem completely meaningless, and that's all up to you. You have a choice as to what that looks like. I think that's what's beautiful about it.
And then even once you find your meaning, you get going on the journey and you want to quit. Like so many times I wanted to quit, want to quit. What's the conversations like in your head, and how do you just not quit?
I want to flip that on you. When you had to go through the situation, I find this story amazing. When, I don't know if you guys know that V essentially nearly went bankrupt. Essentially, his company, technically bankrupt, and he's brought it back, and here we are now, when was that, about 10 years ago?
Nah, like 6.
Okay, anyway. Quick math, don't worry. What was that like for you when you had to have that meeting with the banks and you were faced with that situation where everything around you told you to quit? What was it in you that made you not quit? Because you had every reason to quit and fold.
I think my biggest reason was, I can't remember the amount of debt, but it was like $1 million plus, maybe 1.5 million. I went to the bank, and the bank basically said, we're calling it in, you've broken all your bank covenants. And at that point I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I was just in this like complete sense of calm, and I was completely present. And I walked back to our office, and I was walking up the little driveway, and I was going to tell some bullshit lie to the staff. I was going to lie. But the moment I stepped in, I was like, I'm just going to start facing the music. And I think as soon as you start telling the truth to yourself, no matter what it is, you begin turning in the sense of direction of, okay, I can actually fix this. And then at that point, once you make the decision, once you start being very clear about, the facts and what's at stake, you then make a decision, am I going to quit or am I going to keep going? And for me, my whole thing was, I'm not going to quit. And then after that, it was like, okay, what's my reasons? And the reasons were, a lot of people would have lost their jobs. A lot of factories would have, been, burdened by this debt, and potentially they would have I just keep stacking reasons, like empowering reasons not to quit. And then after that, I was like, okay, I can actually see, and then I also found a lot of clarity around where we went wrong. And then I was like, can I fix that problem? Yes, I can. So it's like, sweet, I've made my decision, I'm not going to quit. I started telling the truth to people around me, so therefore it became no longer a problem that I had, but it was almost a problem that everyone else could carry. But also I felt very liberated in the enthusiasm which people had around me to like, let's fix this thing and let's go for it. Was that in itself was like super empowering, and it like gave me fuel to keep going. And then I just said, fuck it, I'm just going to go for this and I'm going to fix this. And then I was like, I've come this way, I've come this far. I'm not going to quit now. And it was just literally that decision, like, I'm not going to quit now, and I kind of keep going. And that's why, even for you, flipping it back to you, those days where you're burdened by injury,
I'm going to flip it to Josh now.
Yeah. Why'd you not? How come you?
I think what you've both touched on though is that real strong sense of why, and like as you start to go down a path and you get derailed or something comes up or something that wasn't expected, being able to like gravitate not back to only the why, but also some of those systems that like helped maybe make you successful in the first place. But really, like for both of you, that comes through real strong. It's like just always go back to the why, because that'll determine what you do next. And it's that real like value based like behavior set.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think
and then honestly, good people around you as well.
Yeah.
And it's amazing just the goodness of people's hearts as well when you actually share your pain or share your struggle, and the wisdom in which people give to you and actually encourage you. And even my dad, you know, he's a Croatian immigrant, doesn't actually talk much, but simply him just saying, you'll be okay. Yeah. That carried so much for me. And then obviously my brothers, my siblings, you know, my business partners and colleagues, everyone played that part. And I think even for you, Stefan, or for anyone that's like struggling on the path of, you know, whether it be mental health, poor mental health, or someone that's embarking on their own journey to succeed in whatever it may be, I think that's massive. Like share your pain, share your joys, and also just make the decision. Am I going to keep going? Sometimes the sane thing is to quit. And I often reflect back and I was like, fuck, if I was going down this now, would I do it? I don't know, but probably not. But sometimes the sane thing is to quit. But then also it's really good to have some good heads around you as well, some wise people that have also you know, had their own struggles and come up on the other side better off for it, and also just getting them to part with some wisdom as well. So bit of a word salad, but what about you? What was the combos you had? Obviously my one was debt and long-term pain, and I couldn't just pull out. Obviously yours, you potentially could have pulled out.
Yeah.
Not to say it's easier, and yours was physical.
Yeah.
So what was the conversation you had?
Well, you bring up a good point when you say truth, and I think that was really the conversation. End of the day, I mentioned it just before, I put myself in this position. I decided to put myself in this position. I chose to put myself in this position. So that for me was quite a pragmatic view of like, okay, well, this is what it is. You know, I've put myself here. I can get out of bed, so I have to go through with that alarm clock going off and the self-talk around that, having to pull back the curtains and get my body out of bed, start warming up the body, and it's like, well, I can keep moving. So that truth piece was like, if I'm to be honest with myself, I can still take another step, I can still keep moving. There's no actual reason why I'm even able to quit, because there's no reason for me to quit. Of course, unless I had snapped my leg. Funnily enough, 3 weeks ago, I did a 100K run and I actually quit that. I pulled out. I was a DNF, first DNF in a race, because I had a back injury. There's a time and place where you've got to sort of do the mental math and be like, okay, I'm here. This is what I need to do. I've got a long journey ahead, 100K, it's one race. My back's injured. It was easy arithmetic. With the long path mission, well, I can keep moving. I'm already injured. It was day 2. My ankle's in insane pain. I've only just started this journey. I realize why I'm doing this. It's to face adversity. I wonder how much the body can actually sustain here. I can literally keep moving. Okay, at least get through this next leg. Next leg being 15K, 20K. I get through that leg. The day's done. I'm like, go to bed, wake up. Oh, still got pain, but I can still keep walking. So in a way, it's the conversation and the honest conversation, knowing that, okay, I'm in a position where really I am still able, my body can still move, so therefore I'm just going to be lying to myself and to everyone who's in some way invested on this path. And it's also felt like I'd be lying to Jerome. It's like, I'm here showcasing and promoting the necessity for mental resilience, the necessity for going through the arduous and the painful and working in the dark. And here I am now in the light somewhat, showcasing all the work I've done in the dark, and I just fold. And I'm like, well, no, that seems dishonest. It doesn't seem genuine. So it was really just that conversation every day. Honesty, self-honesty, telling the truth to myself. Obviously, I'll check in with my crew each day and tell them how I'm feeling, which in some way ties in real well to the people I had around me. I shared with them what I was feeling and how I was feeling it. And even just being able to do that somewhat alleviated it. It made it feel like it was less me. Like what you said, I felt like the load could now be distributed. The crew knew what was going on, so it felt a bit of a reprieve. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in a world where we're so obsessed with speed and things being instantaneous, and everyone like almost feeling discouraged if they've set a goal to achieve or get to the goal by a certain amount of time, whether it be, whatever it may be, whether it be a race or business or whatever, like, what advice would you give to people on that as well? Like, like not being discouraged if things take longer, because I know people really grossly underestimate what they can achieve in, say, 5 years, but then they really overestimate what they can do in a year. And what would you say, what advice would you part for that, just around, because you had your destination, you had your goal, and I know that it took a few detours, injuries, setbacks. Some days you were like, your whole nervous system was tapped out and you couldn't go. You almost, I think I told you, I was like, take a break. Sometimes sometimes pausing, you might slow down in the interim, but it's going to speed things along in the long term. What would you say? What would you say around? So my question would be: people are obsessed with speed and getting to a certain goal by a certain time frame, and if it doesn't take, or if it's not tracking as quickly as you'd like, and you're frustrated, what advice would you give to that person?
I think it ties back into the comment before about that why and deriving that meaning. That end of the day, if you're having that honest conversation with yourself, again going back to being truthful, you've got to be real and be like, okay, if I'm aiming to deadlift 250 kgs, like you're pretty naive to think that you could be deadlifting that in a couple weeks, So it's a matter of kind of breaking things down into smaller chunks and being realistic of like, okay, I want to be here, so in order to get there, I need to take these steps. Obviously, for every person that looks different, but it's really you have to almost be mature about it. I think what you're talking to is that naivete, which a lot of us do. All of us have that. And I think there's something to be said, argument to be made in the naivete. I think had I not been naive, I wouldn't have done what I done. But I think too many people utilize that, and that's their motivation, whereas motivation is like a flicker of a flame. It's so quick to start, but it's so quick to let it flash out. So being pragmatic and being realistic with what it is you're aiming for, leaning on the why. Once you've got that established, you have your purpose, you have your meaning, you have your reasoning behind it. You start the journey, you start to sprint, and you're like, whoa, this is actually going to be a long, long grind. As you say, I took 2 days off. I wouldn't have taken 2 days off. I got to the bottom of the country. I ran over 3,000 K, and then it probably would have been about a week before that. You just had this conversation, and then, yeah, man, why not take 2 days off? Because at that point, I'd wanted to go for a record to get the FKT, fastest known time. That went out the gate when I had to get rescued in the Tararuas by an NH-90 Air Force helicopter. Nearly got hypothermia, me and my friend. So that skewed things completely. So it ties in more to this question, this answer, is that, you've got to readjust and be real practical with when you get hit with adversity and hit with situations where you're like, whoa, I'm like way out of my depth here. But you don't necessarily have to fold and quit. Maybe just take a breath, take some inventory, look at who you've got around you, ask questions, be around people who are wiser than you, who are better than you, and rescope it and just kind of pull the reins back a bit. That doesn't mean you're quitting. Me with that run 3 weeks ago, I saw, well, technically, yeah, I quit, I DNF, but it's like only one component to the big component of the mission I'm on. It would be so easy to be disheartened, you know, but it's like, sweet, I know what I got to do now. I've got to rehabilitate my back. I've got to work on the back. That means core work. That means more prehab. That means going to a physio. Check, check, check. I can get disheartened, but then I can realize, oh, no, I can see this as an opportunity. So that, in a way, is what that will bring. It will present opportunities if you're wise enough, if you're mature enough to see that as you're sprinting and rushing and you trip over or you realize you're going down the wrong way, you might have to backtrack, but be patient. Be patient. You know, there's a maturity level here. I think, yeah, we've all been immature. Some of you probably still are. I maybe am in some way. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I hope that somewhat answers it. You know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think like setbacks and roadblocks are just, which are inevitable in any path, are sometimes the greatest teachers. I can say that for myself personally in my life, my personal life, and trying to build a brand has been very much like that. Do you have any questions for Stefan or?
Well, I'd like to ask Josh. Yeah, go for it. Because you shared with me when we first started to hang out on that run with Graverunners, I think it's quite a potent. Because I felt that was a time of adversity for the whole world during COVID, right? Yep. That was sort of the inception. So what sort of brought that about, and how and why did that come about?
The idea, I guess, was that it was a motivator when people were isolated. It started as very much a digital platform, like through Instagram, and the idea being is that people would engage and motivate when you couldn't be physically connected, and maybe specifically targeting some of those communities that had like not prioritized mental health, people that were in retail, people that were in hospitality, people that came from those backgrounds that it wasn't a natural part of their rhythm, either because they were working late nights or they happened to be on whatever buzz they were on, was a large part of like the formulation there. And then just realizing how powerful that became when we started being able to like meet in person. And yeah, I personally have my own story on that, but like just that idea that physical health is just a massive promoter for mental health, and I guess we didn't really realize that so much at the time, and then you blend that in with some expression and then connectivity to other people on a regular cadence, and just like I look at like some of the people in this room and just like it's amazing that they've all come together. Like a hilarious side anecdote, someone that's been coming to Graverunners like every week for the last like 3 years happens to pop up on my Strava next to my dad, because they run at another run club together. And it's just awesome the kind of people that these communities attract. I think that's like what we realized very quickly is like there are lots of souls out there like looking for something and looking for those mutual points, looking for the, not just the connection, but that opportunity to better themselves. And there's just like way more people out there. And maybe a lot of those people don't even know that they're those people yet. Yeah. Back to your question, I think it was about like, how do you find that why in the first place? And that idea for me of like, you can't change like your actions through thoughts, but you can change your thoughts through action. So sometimes just like put on your fucking running shoes and go for a run, see what happens on the other side there.
Yeah.
Did you, just one more question, with Graverunners, when that began, did you go into it with the approach and the idea that it was involved around mental health, or you saw it as an opportunity to actually propel people into movement-focused, movement-oriented life?
Like, they had specifically catered it towards that, to go, here's a platform for dirtbags to get off the couch and better themselves. Like, that was the whole initial ethos, is like, how do we, one step at a time, one stride at a time, like, start to promote that message.
And the name?
So many origins. Like, that, one of those being, like, the graveyard at the end of K Road was like one of the initial meeting spots. That idea of like, what was initially like running to the grave, but then became like running from the grave in terms of like bettering yourself so that you're like avoiding, terminal health outcomes basically, but like all iterations around that. And not like late 90s hip hop underground group called Graverunners with a Z on it as well.
Oh, no, yeah, true. Yeah. Nice. Like probably to you both, why do you think there's not enough education around the benefits of physical exercise to your mental health? Like we kind of what I said before, how we have obsession with speed, everything's instant. It's like we want to listen to something or watch something, we can do it instantly. And it's almost like with our mental health to feel good, it's almost been demonized to feel bad, or if you do feel bad for a prolonged period of time, as opposed to actually being physical, you're dished a pill. Why do we, like, obviously it's, you know, big loaded question, but it's almost like, why do you think culture's shifted like that? Why isn't it what you guys, because what you guys are promoting is like amazing. You've been doing it for years.
Yeah, and I think that is actually the point. Like, I think about my own personal journey, and it was probably like four years from start to, like, it's ongoing, but like to the point where I was like, actually, I start to see the benefits of this coming back. I start to see like the certainly from a mental capacity for sure. But people want, to your point, it's like people want quick fixes.
Yeah.
And like going through like year-long or 2-year-long program, or not even a program, but like spending 2 years going for a run every day and working out a couple of times a week, like that does just take a long time to start compounding and give. And maybe it's just like the giving of the feedback as well. Some of those is like instant feedback loop of like, I've done something and it feels good.
Yeah.
Some of this like physical activity isn't that instant. So just like, I guess it's, for me, it's like you have to just believe in it until it starts giving back.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
You do just need some blind faith that it will work out.
Again, it's like faith, goals, and just belief that you're gonna get there, and just not quitting.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like, again, good people around you, so they can kind of check in if they haven't seen you for like a month. Oh, you look fantastic. Like, what are you doing? Fuck, all I've been doing is being consistent with my diet and my exercise.
Like, there is no headline that says guy ate salad. Like, that's just never the headline.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
People want the like, what's the like real snappy thing? And it's like, well, there is there is no. It's that stuff that we talk about of like what you do in the dark that no one sees. That you're rewarded for in public, but like it is just, it's a lot of work.
Totally. And I even know for me as well, once I made the decision that I was going to quit, the journey out of that was, it was horrible. But basically every single day what I do is, sometimes I just couldn't be fucked going for a run, or I just couldn't be bothered, so I just went for a walk. I was like, oh, at least I can do that. And what I did is, even though I'd feel shit when I came home, I'd just basically walk, so I was physical, and then I'd just be saying incantations to myself over and over again. So I'd have my goals, and I'd burn those goals into my subconscious through incantations, just repeating to myself over and over. And then I'd go for a 40-minute walk, 50-minute walk, whatever, come back, and I'd feel completely invigorated, and I'm like, okay, I can tackle tomorrow, I can close off today. I know I'm incrementally getting closer to to achieving this goal of getting out of this hole simply from exercise. And that was actually my drug of choice. And it was an amazing drug, because the side effects are all positive. Cool. But does anyone else have any questions? Like, no question's a dumb question. For Josh, for Stefan, for myself, or I don't know, to contribute to the conversation.
Why was it that you chose running? Why was it like any other, say, endurance sport?
Oh, like someone, put it this way, if someone were to come to you and say, hey, I want to start, exercising and doing something healthy, running is probably the most simple way of starting that. And I'm not sure why. I guess maybe my rugby background. I had a bit of a resentment and disdain for exercise, running. I noticed though, as I got further in my rugby career, I noticed that the moment I started getting fitter, I was a better rugby player, because I was able to think and actually talk on the field. So I kind of had that somewhat banked. And then in 2015, I did Outward Bound. And part of Outward Bound, the last task of Outward Bound is you run a half marathon. I probably killed it for someone. That was apparently meant to be a secret. So that was there, but I kind of forgot about that. That was almost former self. And it was fast forward to 2019, I decided I wanted to run a marathon. Where that decision came from, I don't know. I noticed myself starting to run more and train more. I even started doing a bit of strength-based stuff. And I'd be in any one city. I remember being in Sarajevo in Bosnia. And I remember just going on my phone, searching for a park, because there was no gyms. Found the park and just went to a park and just trained at a park, like a random little child's park. Just, the swings and the jungle gym, whatever, just made it work. And then that kind of just compounded. Then I ran the first marathon in 2019, and it kind of just perpetuated from there. I just wanted to get faster and better and the simplicity of it and the difficulty. And then I found ultra marathon. That came actually very much earlier. I read this book, Ultra Marathon Man, back in school actually, Dean Karnazes, famous book. So that was somewhat banked subconsciously, and then once that reawakened, I'm like, that's what I want to do.
And probably part of the narrative, what people don't know as well, is like you were actually really struggled with marijuana as well. Like,
heavy
like
marijuana.
really struggled. And and like, but like running was almost a tool to get you out of that addiction, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put it this way, my first ultra marathon, I got so stoned the night before. Like my first ever ultra marathon, you know, that was the kind of mindset I was in. I was smoking a lot of weed and I was still running. So it just goes to show, if you're a weed smoker or a tobacco smoker, like there's hope for you. But stop, the best decision I ever made. 2.5 years clean, coming up to 3 years, so, you know, changed my life, so yeah.
Yeah, but did the running also help you, like that was no longer needed? Because that was almost advice to...
Honestly, my faith is what helped me with that, for sure. Yeah, because I was running while I was smoking, but I realized this kind of comes to that.
transition.
For sure. I guess once I became more mature, I realized that this thing is a hindrance, it's holding me back, so I had to let it go. Yeah.
Okay.
Josh, for Graverunners, when you sort of built the community, you mentioned there was a time where like the run culture was becoming really big and you sort of had to rethink like what the purpose was.
2023, 2024, it's like a massive growth and some really successful run crews. Shout out to Trav and Lugsy are both here and hold down some massive crews across Auckland. When we started, it was 2021, when we started meeting in person, we're one of the only spots where you could get together with other people and run. And so that was always the fundamental of what we had offered back to the community, and I guess it was always born from a place of like what we can offer back to people. And as soon as we're not facilitating that like weekly run spot anymore, or as soon as that there's more options for people to be facilitating that weekly run spot, we just saw other ways, like what are the other ways then that we can help facilitate experience and growth and all of those things for the community, and what's different than what everyone else is doing.
This is one for each of you. When you're having a bad mental health day, what's the one thing that you do to improve your mental health for that day? V, you mentioned going for a walk. Is that like always your kind of go-to, or like what gets you trying to out of that rut for the day?
Shall I start? Because I had one yesterday. Interesting thing is like you can have all the tools and all the tactics and you know they work, but when you're in that frame of mind, it's like the logical brain almost becomes disabled or paralyzed. So I had a bit of a bad day yesterday. My son woke up like 8 times the night before. It was like shit weather. I couldn't go outside. And work, it's a very busy season. Hey Josh. Yeah, very busy season. And I was like, fuck. And then I just basically, what did I do? I just went and had a cold shower. Yeah. And then just got some space, shut off my laptop, put my phone on do not disturb. And then after that, I just went and I think I did like 10 kettlebell swings. I just closed my eyes, and then I was like, I just did a bit of gratitude. I was like, I'm grateful that I could walk, I can run, did a run the previous day. Grateful for my family, for my children, this and that. And just separated myself from, I guess, the problem and the situation. And I went back and I honestly felt reset. And I think it probably happened quicker for me just because my body and my mind was so used to those habits. And it's like, it just reminded me around like, okay, this is my focus for the day. And I actually just stopped. What I was doing is I was stacking all my problems and I was stacking my to-do list. And I just disregarded tomorrow, disregarded everything I had to do in the future. I was like, all right, I'm just going to focus on this next task for the next hour. And then it just reset me. But that was from, years of kind of doing little habits and things like that. But as I said, the hardest thing is when you're in that frame of mind, you just forget about all these like positive, good habits that actually work. Yeah. But the beauty of it is they're actually real simple. I reckon like a cold shower or swing some kettlebells or just going for a walk for half an hour outside, I think it would work for anybody really. So that was for me. That's what I do. Josh?
Yeah, I think movement's that big one. I had a year of like some pretty gnarly injuries and bits and pieces, so just like finding other methods, I guess, that exist outside of like physical movement as well. And then just applying the right one at the right time, I guess, is the big one. Like, run through the entirety of these lists. The cold shower is always a great one, but that idea that action changes thoughts, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything they said. For myself, because today I've had a crap day. Right now, I'm having a pretty... But it's realising it's okay, you know? Like, all good. And then I'm fortunate in having an amazing supportive partner. I get to share that with her, and sharing that with her right there just alleviates it. It doesn't turn it into a thing. It's a thing I'm feeling, and I'm not feeling good. It's like, you know, and that in itself becomes a victim mentality, and then you perpetuate that. Then you become identified by that. And it's recognizing now, okay, I'm having this bad day, like, well, why is that necessarily a bad thing, you know? And then I do the reboots, what V said, and Josh, cold showers, yeah, I hate them. Finish with a cold shower, it's always a good tool. Going for a walk, writing's real helpful. And also just recognizing that, man, I've had pretty good the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and today's feeling crap. So that's all good too. And notice that, get through the day, and the next day, if you still feel the same way, reboot, try another method, or try the same method again. Also not giving it too much weight. I think that's a big problem now in society, that we're constantly pandering to our emotions in a way where it's definitely got benefit, but now that's all it is that we kind of focus on. And I think that can be real detrimental, because put it this way, had I been pandering to my emotions on the mission, I would have given up day two, because I was injured, I was in pain, I was uncomfortable, I was tired, I was miserable, I was sad. Every reason to quit, but I didn't allow that. So it kind of ties back into the whole thing we've been talking about, but yeah.
And I think probably to add to that as well, something that, say, when you can have some good days or normal days, and you have a couple of bad days, you start almost fixating on, that I feel shit, or why aren't I, why don't I feel good? I think one of the most powerful questions which I've discovered, which has helped me for my personal life and my business, is what am I not seeing? And I think when you ask yourself that, you're almost looking for other things, other things that may be actually quite obvious, but you've been focusing more on the problem rather than what am I not seeing. And by asking that, some pretty obvious things and obvious answers present themselves. That's been massively beneficial to me. I didn't ask myself that yesterday. I should next time, but I actually often do ask that for, in business a lot. Like me and Paul, we always say that stuff as well. Like, what are we not seeing? What's the downside? Are we comfortable with that? Things like that. But yeah.
And also to add to that, I forget I'm a man of faith, so I lean a lot on God in prayer. That for my run, that was my daily tool. And I think, it doesn't necessarily need to be God who you lean on, but having some form of spiritual practice or some sort of practice where you kind of get out of your head and turn to something that may be bigger, Yeah, gratitude, whatever it may be. But that for me is a huge, huge tool. Yeah. Well, it's everything for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else, or are we going to go for a run?
Good. Henry, one of the Graverunners crew leads, going to lead us off for a run around the domain for those keen. We meet out the front if anyone needs to get changed or anything like that. From that side or here? Let's go this way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thanks for coming down, team.
Appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Mean, boys. That's it. Mean, B.